Hey everyone, welcome to my car wash project. If you haven't been around previously, this property has been vacant. We've had some problems with homeless and other riffraff. A few years ago, they installed a gate and a fence, which kind of prevented a little bit of that. But since I've been working on getting this thing back up and going, we've been broken into, and so a security camera system has been top on my list. We also got the car wash painted last week. See the blue pinstripe I threw up there. Thinking of throwing up just a little bit more color in the future, but just doing a little bit at a time so I don't get overwhelmed. We also got the asphalt here, all sealed and slurried, so it's nice, looks fresh and everything. So let's go see what the system looks like that we're gonna be installing today. The system I ended up getting was a pretty big system, and it came in 3 separate shipments actually. So these are the 3 boxes that it came in. I've already stripped everything out and I got it laid out on this table here. And then another thing I picked up on my way here was a 4K TV. It was actually about the same price to get a TV as it was to just get a monitor. And so I'm just gonna wall mount my TV, and you'll see later here once I get that set up. And at least I have a backup Netflix here if I get bored in case. So I figured the TV was a better option than the monitor. Okay, so I got everything out of the box laid out here, and I'm gonna give you a review on what I think about the LOREX setup and everything once it's installed and running. Obviously we don't know yet, but I do have my fingers crossed a little bit because when I open this up, it looks like maybe I got like a open box kit or something, because I've got stuff in here that's already been opened. There's loose screws in the bottom of this box here. But other than that, I've got like a mouse in here, an HDMI cable, a power cable for all my setup stuff, right? And then I've got the NVR, which has 16 ports on the back of it, so 16 channel system. That's where the power cable goes into over here, and then the HDMI right here. And it's not too bad of a size. I'm gonna try to find a good place that I can hide it. This comes with 3 terabyte of a hard drive, but it also has a second slot. And so if I need to add additional space to it later, after I see how long it can record without getting filled up, then I can also add additional hard drives to it. The cameras that I got are 4K, 8 megapixel cameras. They also have a zoom feature. This specific kit with these cameras was around like $1,900 bucks, but it said it retailed for like north of $2,500. And so I don't know how accurate that is because they're always having sales. Supposedly I got this on like an early Black Friday access sale, and so it's supposed to be like the cheapest that you can get, but who knows, because everything's always on sale anyways. But I'm looking forward to see how these cameras do, especially because they have the zoom feature. And so in the spaces that I am looking at a far distance, I can actually dial it into, like for example, my camera on the back right here that are facing the vacuums are gonna have to look a pretty far distance to be able to catch the picture right there against the vacuums and where they're throwing away trash and stuff. And so we'll see how, that's kind of like one of my big tests is the zoom. And then supposedly they also have like an awesome night vision color quality as well. And so looking forward to see what goes there. Each camera comes with 100 feet cable. I'm not sure if this is Cat 5. I think this is a Cat 5 cable, but you can use Cat 5 or Cat 6. And the reason I decided to go with this type of setup is this is gonna be video feed as well as the power source for the cameras. Now these are only 100 feet long, and keep in mind I'm installing this on like a commercial property. I'm gonna be going some pretty long distances. So I think there's gonna be about 3 or 4 different cameras that I'm gonna have to build my own cable for. So I already got a box of this Cat 6 cable, which is blue, and I'm gonna build some of those. And then I got like some crimping tools and a tester to be able to make sure that once I get my ends crimped on there that I have a good connection and cable and everything. So we'll go through that. I went ahead and bought a fish tape because I'm gonna have to be running, you know, everything through the attic of this car wash up here, and it's gonna be going through the soffit and stuff like that. So I've got this. I got a bunch of zip ties so I can make a nice clean install. And then I bought these, well, they call them coaxial staples, but they fit perfectly right over the Cat 5 cables. And so I'm gonna use these little clips to secure everything up in the attic and make it really clean and everything. So other than that, we just gotta plan this baby out and get started on the install, which is actually gonna happen tomorrow because as you can see when we started this video, it's already dark. I think it's 6 p.m. So I'm gonna call it a day and start throwing wire in the attic tomorrow. I do a lot of planning on any projects I take on, and so especially with cameras and stuff, I probably went overkill on this. You guys don't need to have a site plan or a big map like I do. You can just go get on Google and do an aerial view of your property. But I went ahead and marked where each camera is gonna be. I numbered the camera. I showed the angle that the camera is gonna be pointed, and then the field of view on that camera. So on some of these cameras, I actually am over 90 degrees field of view because I have a 113 degree view on these cameras, but that's dependent on how far in or out I'm zoomed. And so on some of them, it's just gonna be a 90 degree field of view based on where the walls are and everything. And then the orange lines that you see that come back here is where the cables are gonna run through the attic. And so I'm gonna be able to actually pull a lot of this stuff just in one straight line off the back side, and then just run my 3 cameras that are in the front of the building to the back there. But in the end, everything needs to come back and meet at this blue circle where I have my NVR and TV mounted. You guys get to learn from my mistakes. So I'm finding that these Cat 5 cables that came with the system are basically just like slinky cords when you're trying to pull them up and through and fish them. And sometimes you'll end up with kinks like this all over. And so I'm double thinking myself, wondering if I should have just ran all new Cat 5 cable with this stuff that comes out of the box. You notice how straight it is and easy it would be to pull. But at the same time, I'd have to resplice all my ends and everything. And these also come with these special ends in there that create a waterproof seal around the camera, which I could also move over, but it's just a little bit more work. So here's the solution that I've come up with. I took this foam brush and put some screws in my trusses here and created a spool. So I've got 3 cameras that need to go back in this corner, one down into the bay, one on the corner, another in the next bay. So I put all 3 of my cables on this foam brush handle, screwed it to the trusses, and then I'm gonna take the ends, tape them up so they don't get tangled together. And then I'm just gonna have to crawl all the way down to where my NVR is gonna go down in the corner. And this will make sure that everything unwinds straight and doesn't slinky cord up. Okay, you can see I've already got 1 camera installed over here. And then this camera is gonna go and point behind me, going into the bay. So I'm gonna take my 1¼ inch spade bit and drill up through where I want the camera to be. And this aluminum soffit is actually super thin. So I just wanna go super slow so I don't tear it all up. And I make a nice clean hole. So you see what I mean, how it'll just start tearing it up, so I stop right away. And really this size of bit is a little bit overkill. I could probably go down to like 1 inch, but I want to make sure I'm not fighting it, trying to get the Cat 5 cable down through. And the mount plate for the camera is more than enough to cover that. Plus it has like a foam piece in order to seal around this hole right here. Okay, so now I'm gonna take my fish tape and I'm just gonna start feeding it through that hole and feeling my way up and into the attic over to where I can tie off to the Cat 5 cable. All right, so I was fighting it with my fish tank. So I went and got my glow rod here, and I've got it up in there about 6 feet so far, because this is 11 feet long. And so now we're gonna go up in the attic and see if we can get the end of it. I'm doing whatever it takes to show you guys what's going on here. I'm literally laying on my belly up here because there's only about 1.5 feet of clearance. And you can see what the glow rod was getting stuck on. It was coming to this V right here and going into the corner. And because I was having to push it up and over, I wasn't able to get it down and around, but I'm able to reach it now with my hand and pull it down. Okay, so just wrap it good with electrical tape. I've got this big bulge here that's difficult sometimes to get around stuff, but I put a lot of extra tape on this corner to make sure it doesn't snag, and then we can go pull it through. And that's like the most satisfying part, is when you see the end of your cable come through and the fight is over. Okay, camera's connected up and I screwed in the waterproof jacket that goes over the cable. And what I'm using to mount this camera is number 8 by 5/8 inch self-tapping screws, and just going really slow because once again this metal is very thin. And very last, there's 3 screws right here on the side and a little tool that comes with each camera to loosen these and adjust this to the angle that we need. So I'm gonna turn it and dial it in toward the inside of this bay now. And that is your end result. These gray cables right here are all my cameras. One thing I do on all my real estate projects is I make sure all my TV cable, low voltage cables are all tied up and out of the way and not a mess. So same thing here. I just use a bunch of zip ties and pulled them all in a straight line, kept it all together, pulled this one in from behind me, and then I ran it all down through a 2-inch piece of ABS pipe. Okay, we can finally start hooking stuff up. Now, I need to crimp a few ends or new connectors on these ends. They're RJ45 connections. And originally, I was gonna take and roll up my extra slack on some of the cables and leave it in the attic. But by the time I got done crawling around up there and I ended up like super itchy all over, I didn't have as neat of a job as I liked, and so I think I'm just gonna end up crimping all new ends on everything and just leaving about 5 feet of slack on it. And so I've got my Klein Tools crimp tool. It's like a 4-in-1 tool. It cuts strips. You saw this earlier. We got special pass-through data plugs that go with that tool. And then I've got these boots. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the length of cable that I want, and I'm gonna put the cable through the tool where it says cut, right there. And I'm gonna cut it. It cuts it down. And then you've got a half moon on the top and the bottom right here. So you put the cable through there and give yourself a generous amount, and then crimp it down and twist it. And it's barely gonna nick that jacket. And then you're just gonna fold that jacket over and pull, and it'll come right off. And then you end up with 4 twisted pairs. And so now we just need to untwist all those. Now, if you're running off straight caffeine at 11 o'clock at night, it might be a little bit difficult because you're all jittery. But let's get them untwisted. Okay, now they look like a bunch of little fried hairs, and so you want to start and pull like that and get them straight, because it's going to make it a lot easier to get into the connector later. Also, pay attention to your brown and your orange. because if you're a little bit colorblind, you might get those backwards. Okay, I should have done this earlier after I cut it, but you want to get your boot on there before you crimp. And then I'm gonna take the tool and I'm gonna follow the diagram and get my sequence of colors in the right order so that I can go ahead and crimp this. And there's also some other reasons I wanted to just leave a few feet of slack on the ends of these cables. One was because I wanted it to be organized, obviously. And another reason is that because these are so small, over a longer distance you can have power loss and your video or your camera can cut in and out over time. And so that's important. And then the other reason, because I have everything centralized now in one location, I can just use a PoE switch in the future and move my monitor to a different location and just have to run one Ethernet cable to that monitor. And so it just made sense to go ahead and put new connectors on basically everything. Okay, now it's literally like running a piece of thread through a needle. That's how small these wires are. As you're threading it in, make sure that down here by the jacket, you got it all the way and twisted. So as you slide this on, you can get that jacket up inside that connector. And then you take everything and double check your color sequence. Thread it all through the tool. Push it in. And then go ahead and ratchet. And it cuts off all your wires on the back side. And on this other side, you have a crimped end. Then I just like to pull that jacket or that boot up and on, and then write the number of camera that it is on this back side. Okay, we pulled everything out and hooked it all up. This is just gonna be temporary for now because the original plan was to put this in the metal cabinet, which would have been awesome because it locks, but it's just not quite deep enough. So I'll find something later. All right, here we go. We are live with all these cameras, and from the get-go, it already looks pretty awesome. I can see just about everything. You will see that number 9 camera. It's been going in and out since I set it up, and I think that's user error. I gotta go check some connections and everything. I'm gonna do that tomorrow. A couple of these cameras were blurry when they first came up, and so I just came in here and I clicked autofocus, and it dialed itself in without me having to change any settings or anything, and it cleared right up. You can read the words build changer on here on the front of this token machine. And like, come over here and look at this camera, and you can see every single leaf on the ground and scroll into it. And so I'm pretty impressed with that. I imagine if that was a person, you'd be able to depict facial features. And then like over here in the front of the building on my truck, you can read the letters F-O-R-D. So I suppose if I had a license plate, I'd be able to read whatever's on the license plate as well. And so yeah, you know, some of the things I would change about the way I set up this system now that I've done it is I for sure would just run all of my own cable and throw theirs away. Since I ended up doing all the connections anyways on the NVR side, I should have just done everything. But it's working out just fine. I mounted this TV up with a mount from Harbor Freight, and that worked out pretty good. But one thing I wouldn't recommend from Harbor Freight is these pull rods, these glow sticks. They literally did what you don't want them to do, is they came apart at the tips, they pulled out, and so I had to go up and retie them. And at the end of the day, I spent about $2,300 for this whole system with the TV, the bracket, all the tools and everything. So I saved quite a bit of money. I imagine it would have cost me a lot more to have this professionally done. and the quality looks pretty professional. I think, to me, I'd recommend this system. So go ahead and like the video if you guys found this helpful to get your own camera set up, and we'll see you in the next videos.